All right, all right. Welcome back to the Big Play Podcast with Dr. Marlon Williams. I'm your host, Dr. Marlon Williams. And today on episode 2, we are joined again by the distinguished Danny Davison and the esteemed Mickey Scott Walker. Good afternoon, good people. How y'all doing?
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. How's it going? Hello, Mickey.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hello. Everything's going well. Hey, Marlon. Hey, Danny. I'm sorry. Hello, Dr. Williams. Hey, Danny.
Much appreciation, but Marlon is cool. Marlon is cool. So thank you guys so much for, first of all, for your willingness to come on and have this conversation, as well as, all that you did during part one. And we've gotten quite a good response from the people who have watched part one, and everyone's excited about part two. And funny enough, um, I thought that an hour was going to be more than enough, and in fact, maybe a little too long. But some people have been uh, upset about it being short. They felt like that 45-minute conversation that we had was actually, they felt like it was only like 20 minutes, but we know it was a little bit longer even than what
How's
they
your
saw, right?
right?
Okay. So uh, we're going to give them, the new viewers and the people who maybe didn't see part one, just a brief synopsis of what we covered last time. And of course, this is about the Southwest DeKalb Alumni Festival, and Danny is the organizer of that. And some of the highlights from the first conversation was that Danny was actually out of town and did a lot of the legwork, did all the legwork and all the due diligence and putting together the permits and paying for things out of his pocket to bring the festival to life. And it really took off in 2017. It's been attended by hundreds of alumni. More than 26 classes have participated in the festival. And one of the things that we talked about in the last episode in part one was the conflict between Danny and Mickey, and how that conflict stemmed from Danny asking for help originally, and then Mickey offering her assistance, and then Danny changing his mind and refusing her assistance. But I think it would be helpful for our listeners and viewers if you two kind of went back to that. There was another highlight of the last of part one was the apology that Danny gave, as well as Mickey's admission that she does have quite the strong personality and can be bossy. And so I think that's very important for us to kind of go back to that. And I guess we can start part two with that.
Okay,
Okay.
Mickey, did you want to start?
Well, I can expound upon that. I think Danny and I we had some conflict a few years ago, and it started which we squashed. It
Okay.
started with allowing dogs and kids to come to the picnic. We got into a disagreement about that. Some things were said. The apology was made, accepted, and we squashed after that. We were done. We were still rolling. But I think as time progressed, a number of things came about where people asked for certain things to be done for the school that had nothing to do with the picnic.
Okay.
I'm a staunch believer that we can do things for the school, but the school has to also do things for themselves. So there was a time when I think where the issue really started popping up was there was a time when they asked, there was a group that talked about getting rings for the basketball team. And so for me, I always come from analytical business and financial thought process. Who's
Hmm.
collecting the money? Who's going to be able to access the money? How do you distribute the money? And there are a lot of people, again, ideas are great. It's great to want to do things, but once you decide how you got to decide how it's done so that there's no blowback. And I think part of it was where somebody said, well, you can give the money for the PTA to hold. PTA can't hold money for the school. They cannot. If you give PTA money, they are going to take a portion of that money and give it to the national PTA association, the national one, because any monies that they collect have to go to them. You can't just say, hey, somebody hold the money for me. So that
That's
became a
correct.
problem. You know, right. Mickey's being negative. No, I'm not. There's rules and guidelines to everything. Then we had
Okay.
another time uh, where uh, John Garrett and Principal Glanton wanted to make some improvements to the school. And I said, okay, that sounds great, but you can't do that. You can't. He said, these are the list of things that Principal Glanton wants. Let's get it for him. You can't do that because Southwest DeKalb is a part of the DeKalb County school system. They
And
have
who
RFPs where people
and
have
who
to bid. Go ahead.
Mickey, who is John Garrett for those who don't know?
Class of 85.
Okay. All right.
He's the former Alumni
Great guy.
Association
But
president too.
Okay. And so and this conflict between you and Danny, how's this um
so it stems from Danny. Danny was a part of that conversation about buying the rings.
okay.
Because I also said, well, listen, I'm keen with chipping in for paying for the rings, but where are the parents? Let's get the cost of what the rings cost. Make sure the
Okay.
parents are paying for half of that,
Okay.
and then we can collect money for the other half.
Okay.
Nobody liked that idea. They wanted to pay for everything. I'm not paying for everything. Those are not my children. I'm more than happy to help. But I remember when I was at Southwest DeKalb, we had to sell entertainment books and do car washes. We didn't have anybody that just blatantly gave us money.
I remember those
And
car
you all
washes
remember those big old,
and the
ooh,
weightathons.
and
We used
those
to lift
entertainment
weights.
books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
So, so,
absolutely. I
so
remember all
there you
those
go. We
things.
earned it. We earned it. Right. It wasn't just people. It wasn't just um, the people that went to Southwest DeKalb expecting those of us who graduated from there to just throw money at them.
You
That's
know,
not how
that's
this works. It's got to
I
be hard earned.
I hear you on that. When we were there had not been as many classes in terms of people who were there during our era. And
Right.
so in
Mhm.
84, 85, even up and through 91, there wasn't 10 or 20 different classes that were coming through that Panther Pride era, particularly with, the presence of
Right.
Buck Godfrey. You know
I,
what I mean? So, but I totally get it. But in
I get
terms
it.
of
I
you and
agree.
Danny, what was the main challenge between you and Danny? Because he had made an apology in part one, and I think it wasn't quite clear enough about what it was that was the offense or offenses, and what he was apologizing for. So, if you could give us a quick, or just give us some details on that, so Danny can address it.
So the last time with the picnic, Danny had some health challenges, and he was out of town. He
Okay.
asked for help. I offered to help. And
Okay.
then he set up a meeting with DeKalb County that he
Hmm.
said he couldn't attend. He put a blog out, said, hey, I can't make the meeting. Can anybody else make the meeting? I said,
Right.
absolutely, I can make the meeting. Just tell me
Okay.
when and where. And
Okay.
it was just brushed off. And then it was, Mickey, I don't want you to go to the meeting. Well,
Mm.
why can't I go? I want to know what's going on because you've asked for help.
Okay.
So my feeling is if you're going to ask for help and you have people that are willing to help, I I I hear what he said, and we went back and forth until finally he said, "Listen, neither you nor your class need to attend." And I said,
Okay.
"Okay, cool." Because I
Okay.
was going because our normal person that handled this previously was Lolita, and Lolita said she didn't have time to do it this year. And I said, "Okay, I'll step up.
Okay.
I'll step in. Let me help. I can join a committee so that Danny doesn't have to do this all by himself like he's been doing year after year." And that also opens up the door to transparency. So we all know what's happening, where the money's going. So we got into some conflict when he said neither one of us had to go. No, neither me nor my class needed to attend. I sent
Hmm.
out the text message to everybody and said, "Hey guys, we just been uninvited to the picnic."
And
And of
some
course, everybody texts back, "What did you do, Mickey? What did you do?"
Okay.
Go
And
ahead,
and there
Marlon.
were some things that you said occurred, some conversations or some screenshots.
Yeah, I received some screenshots because so on the alumni page, Danny was posting some things, and so I started asking questions.
Okay.
And when I would ask questions, Danny would kick back with something else, just something negative towards me. And then somebody reached out to Danny and said, "Hey, Danny, I don't understand what's going on between you and Mickey." And then she sent me the screenshots. She's a lying bee. She's trying to say things about me. Well, don't listen to what she's saying about me. I wasn't saying anything about him. I didn't know anything about Danny other than he had some health issues and needed help.
Okay.
Now, with that, when that happened and we
Mm-hmm.
did it online, it
Right.
opened up to people reaching out to me that I'd never spoken to. I had no idea who they were.
Okay.
That fed me information that I didn't disseminate to everybody. That
Mm-hmm.
person fed it to me and said, "Hey, why don't you take over?" And I said, "I don't have the bandwidth to take over. I've got too much
Wow.
other stuff going on."
Wow.
Uh,
That's deep. That's deep. So people were texting you
right.
with allegations and
No, no, no.
and
They weren't just, no, no. Let's be clear. It was not
uh
allegations. It was
okay.
screenshots of DMs where they were
Okay.
talking with Danny.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
And
Well, I mean,
that's the,
in, on one part, it's information in terms of things that he allegedly that things that he said about you, screenshots of his text messages or inboxes. And the other side of it, when you said information, I didn't
Mhm.
know that those were the same thing. So when you said information, are you talking about the screenshots or are you talking about other things? Because I'm saying if there are other
So the
things other
screenshots
than
had people.
screenshots, those are allegations. That's what I'm saying. But I think Danny, you
Well,
want to
so let me say this.
go ahead. I'm listening.
Sorry, man.
So Danny, all right. So we've heard about the way you handled changing your mind about asking for help and Mickey participating, um, and now it's been shared that there was some screenshots of some conversations that you
Mm-hmm.
had with people.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that, and what would you like to say?
Yeah, so I did. I had a conversation. I had, a couple conversations with people that were inboxing me and asking me what's going on, what's the problem between me and Mickey, and
Mm-hmm.
it just had become, just a bane to having to keep talking to, just to keep talking about this because it had nothing to do with the festival. Like my
Okay.
focus and everything that I wanted to do was focused on the festival. And as I said in part one, like my goal was to focus on the people that were going to be there.
Right.
Right. So I wanted to make sure I was facilitating the people that were coming and, that were interested and excited about that day. Now,
Okay.
did I call Mickey out her name? I did. And for
Okay.
that, I do apologize because she didn't deserve that.
Mm.
She didn't deserve it. No woman deserves it. And I can't stand on something like that without standing here in front of you right now and not being man enough to apologize for that. I don't give any excuses. I'm not going to say, if she had no, I shouldn't have said it. And for
Okay.
that, Mickey, I apologize. I apologize for using
I appreciate that.
that terminology in reference to you. So I apologize for that.
Okay.
Now,
I
I
appreciate
don't
that.
apologize. I
Hold,
don't
hold on, hold on,
apologize.
hold on a second. Hold on a second. So,
Yeah.
Mickey, it sounds like you've accepted his apology. Yes.
Yeah, I accept the fact.
Okay.
No, let me say this.
Do
I
you?
accept the fact that he is apologizing because,
Uh huh.
but when you throw in no woman deserves to be called that. No, no, no. That's now you're doing a broad apology.
Okay.
I
Okay.
don't care about other women. What I
Okay.
care about is literally what you said specifically about me, and not
Okay.
about the general female population. Me, and that
Okay.
No, I
was
think I think I said
unwarranted
I think
Hold on,
and
Danny. Hold on.
unnecessary.
Let her
yeah.
finish. Uh huh.
Yeah, yeah. And so if you're going to do an apology to someone, the apology is for that person, not for general. I should never say that about women or anything like that. It's
Okay.
I that apology should be specifically for me because you spoke about me unnecessarily, unequivocally wrong, and you said things about me that you didn't need to say.
Okay. All
Okay.
right. Danny, do you agree that that's I don't I personally don't well, I'm gonna let you talk. Go ahead.
Yeah. So um, if I'm not mistaken, if I think I did say I do apologize to you, and I think I was just using that as a reference along with what I was saying. I don't know how much more of I'm sorry and I apologize, you know, how much more can be said to that.
I
I
think
just
what
use
she's
that.
I think what she's
Yeah,
saying is so I see both sides of this, and forgive me for playing mediator here, but I think what Danny is saying, just to touch on what he just said, is that he was just making a statement in general. It wasn't that he was trying to diminish the apology to you directly, but I
correct.
also see Mickey's perspective
Okay.
in that mentioning that no woman should be called that. I also think that, I can see where, and hopefully you can see it as well, where that could be interpreted as you kind of diminishing the apology to her. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I got it. I got it. I
Okay, because I
understand.
know that there are
Yeah,
people on this call on this show, and people who are listening that would say that there are some women who may very well deserve to be called that, and some women
right.
who will call themselves that. But in
Oh,
this instance, um,
and
you know,
let's be clear. There's plenty of times that I'm fully aware that my behavior is that of a bitch. I get it. I
oh,
get it.
okay.
But where my concern, oh, absolutely, because I stand on business all the time. I
Well,
will
that
stand on
doesn't,
business.
yeah,
Danny
that
will tell
doesn't
you.
necessarily make you a
Well,
B word, but I
my
get it.
my
Yeah,
stance,
yeah.
but
It
my
don't
stance
necessarily
may
make
not
that.
always be the most polite. Yeah, but but for me, it feels like this is a recurring theme that happens every year or every other year where people are inboxing me screenshots of me being called out of my name
Okay,
because he doesn't like when I push back and I ask questions. So
okay.
that's where all of my animosity stems from is that this is a recurring thing. If it happened one time, absolutely,
Hmm.
I get it. But this is
Hmm.
happening all the time. Anytime he has a disagreement with me asking a question about something, and I don't think it's fair that you're calling this the Southwest DeKalb annual alumni festival or picnic or whatever. If you're tagged, that'd be like, Kim calling it the Kim Kardashian festival, and Kim Kardashian doesn't get to say anything about it. When you're using where we went to, I mean, I would say honestly, if you had called this the Danny Davison picnic, probably nobody would have showed up but your friends.
Well,
But
let's
once you add Southwest
well,
DeKalb to it,
hold
Hold
on,
on,
hold on.
hold on.
Well, just to be fair, before
Yeah,
we get
just
to that part of it, before we get to that part of it, um, so the apology has been made, and Danny, are you
okay.
making the apology to her, or are you making it to all womankind?
I'm making the
He,
apology
he
to
said to
Mickey.
me, he said to me, so
All
he
right,
doesn't have to
Yeah,
do
and
I'm
so.
making
and
it to
so
Mickey.
and
Yes,
so and this is for each and every time that Mickey has received inboxes and
right,
messages about you doing so.
right, correct.
All right.
Thank you,
Okay. And
thank you.
and Mickey, do you accept his apology?
I accept the apology.
All right. Mickey, do you forgive Danny?
Oh, let's not go that far.
Oh, let's go that far.
Yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
she
accept.
doesn't. She
Well,
I
I'm
mean,
yeah,
it's
she doesn't
accepting
okay.
the
have to.
apology.
It's
I'm
okay.
accepting.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah,
Okay.
she doesn't
Cool.
have to forgive me.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
looking. I'm
yeah.
not
Well,
looking
no, 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 no. So
for
so
forgiveness.
so
Yeah,
here's what can happen sometimes, because it's obvious that you both are strong personalities. And I don't know, you both may be Taurians. I don't think so, because Mickey just had a birthday. Happy belated birthday, Mickey.
No,
But
I'm a
you both have
Pisces. Thank you.
strong personalities, right? And so it's okay that you both have strong personalities, and it's okay that you're both passionate about Southwest DeKalb High School. And so I'm gonna just do my best to try to minimize the shot fired or to
yeah,
try to keep us on track, so the conversation is productive. I just
Sure.
want us to be productive. I want the conversation to
Absolutely.
be informative, but also productive and healing. I mean, Lord have mercy, healing. Let's have some healing, okay? But also let's keep it funky and keep it 1,000, right? We gotta be authentic. So I'm not trying to
Absolutely.
sugarcoat it, but I am trying to keep it civil and productive. All right.
Okay.
So good. Danny, is there
That's fair.
anything else that you
That's
would
fair.
like? Appreciate that, Mickey. Is there anything else you'd like to apologize for? Or anything else you'd like to
Um,
say?
No,
I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna
I'm
leave
good
it
with it.
at the apology.
Okay.
Because if I go into other things, it's going to take away the
Got it.
significance of
Got it.
what the apology, what the apology means, right?
Okay.
I don't want to do a if, and, or, but type of thing,
Mm-hmm.
because I want her to
Right.
accept the apology. Now,
Oh,
she
hold
doesn't
on.
have to forgive me,
Uh-huh. Go ahead.
right? She doesn't have to forgive me.
Mm-hmm.
But the apology was left up to me, and it was for me to give to her for making the mistake, right?
Right. Right.
So I have to be man enough to say, if she forgives me, I appreciate it. But if she doesn't, I have to be able to stand with that as well.
Okay. That's fair. And I appreciate you saying that. Hopefully one day things will mend. No, these fences will be mended enough for there to be some forgiveness involved. But I will say, just on a side note, I mean, how messy are those people that were having conversations with you and then forwarding it to Mickey? I think that's kind of shady, but that's just my opinion. All right, so moving
Well,
forward.
what I would
Hmm.
say is this. What I would say is this, and I'm very clear. The reason why there's an acceptance of the apology but not a forgiveness is because the behavior continues to happen. Now, if the behavior ceases,
Okay,
then I'm more than willing to look further into how Danny and I can resolve any conflicts going forward in a
absolutely,
civil way without the name calling and the shots fired. But because
absolutely.
this has been the pattern of behavior,
Hmm.
there's no forgiveness coming from me. There's an acceptance of the apology, but there's not a forgiveness for the behavior until the behavior changes.
Okay, and so all right, so we left off with Mickey acknowledging and accepting the apology, but there being a concern about it being a pattern of behavior. And I guess when you see that better is being done, and that, I guess you're saying that you will feel better about giving forgiveness once Danny shows that it's truly meant authentically and genuinely by his behavior and not
Correct.
continuing what has happened in the past.
So let me say something real quick.
Correct.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna, I'm gonna just say this. So going forward, Mickey, you don't have to worry about the conversations or anything being said that gets back to you. You don't have to worry about that, because I have decided that what happens from this point going forward. Um, Anything that's said, anything that's mentioned, anybody has any gripes or grievances about what's happening, what's going on, um, I'm not going to partake in it. I'm not going to I'm not going to give an opinion about it. I'm not going to address it or whatever, because it's so many good things that have come out of the festival. So many relationships have been mended. So many business opportunities have come up because of the festival. And the problem between me and you, it look, it ain't worth it for me. It's not worth it, because it only takes away from the significance of what's being accomplished. And I don't know if you realize, me and you are the only ones that have problems, right? Me and you are the only ones that have problems. Now there may
I don't
be
know.
people who
I, I,
there may be people
I don't know.
who have
Look,
conversations back and forth, but a public problem it's only me and you. And it's been like that from the inception, right? So I had to realize, I had to say to myself after the conversation from part one, what is this adding to the festival? A problem between me and one other person.
So let me jump in real quick and just say that, Danny, unfortunately, not everyone is brave enough to voice their opinions and to stand by their opinions and their thoughts.
And I
And
understand that.
and so there are probably other people, these same people that were sending screenshots of your conversation to Mickey are two-faced, basically, in my opinion. If they're talking to you and then sending her screenshots, it's like they having one conversation with you and then having a conversation with Mickey, right? And I think last in part
And let's
one,
be
Mickey
clear. Let's
mentioned,
be clear though,
hold on,
Marlon.
Mickey.
Hold on one
I
second.
think part one, Mickey, you
Okay,
mentioned
go ahead. Go ahead.
that people that came at you, one of the people that came to you with it, you were like, I don't need to hear an apology from you that should be coming directly from him, and you weren't talking, and so you've just decided to cut ties with that person. It's sort of like when someone, I've heard people say, you know if someone comes to you, someone comes to me and they're like, Marlon, such and such saying this about you, such and such saying this about you, and I could say, all right, well, I don't really like such and such, and that's messed up, such and such is doing that. But the question really is, why is such and such so comfortable telling you and talking to you about me?
Right.
If you were my friend like that, if you had my back like that, they would never even think about coming to you and throwing shade like that. And so the real point I'm trying to make here is this: you both have each other's phone numbers, and if you don't, I'm gonna text you when we get through recording, so you both have each other's phone numbers. And at
We
least
have each
if you
other's phone
choose to,
numbers. Oh, we have each
if you
other's phone
choose
numbers.
to, all right, great. Well, you already have it. So if you choose to, you can continue a
Mhm.
dialogue. But I think what we what I hope doesn't happen on this in this conversation is that we get when we allow our egos to prevent us from making the progress that we can make. And trust me, when I say our egos, I'm not saying Danny and I'm not saying Mickey. I'm saying Danny's ego and Mickey's ego, because everyone has an ego, and some would argue that our egos are
Mhm.
out to destroy us, and our egos just get in the way, right? So I'm hoping that we can set aside our egos, do what we can to manage our emotions, and have a productive conversation without throwing shots or sneak dissing, even in the slightest.
Right.
But back to another
Right.
original point, Danny, Mickey may be the only one who is brave enough and straightforward enough to speak her mind the way she has. And I think you have a point about it being public. But Mickey, you wanted to say something. You jump on that, please.
Yeah, because I want you to understand that the number of people that were reaching out to me inboxing, we weren't friends on Facebook. We didn't really know each other than seeing each other at the picnic, and they were still saying, we have these questions as well. And one
Mm,
young lady said to me, well, I was wondering the same thing. So when he didn't answer you, I didn't bother to say anything because I knew he wasn't going to answer me either. So why is everything so undercover?
and that's
And
interesting.
so
That's
that's what I
interesting that.
also wanted to say was,
Mm,
like how Marlon said, people are people are thinking it. People are thinking it, but they're not willing to say it. Whereas I've already said, I can be really bossy and I can be, I stand on it. If I ask you a question or if you ask me a question, by all means, I will put it out there. I, Everyone knows I am the mouth of forever. I say exactly how I feel. I've got a best friend that says, Mickey, you know what? The worst thing about you is underneath your nose, which is my
mm,
mouth. So I get it. And so I like how it is what it is. I know who I am. You either like
mhm.
me or you hate me. It is. But that's why they were saying to me, yeah, if that's how he's going to respond to you, I'm not even going to bother to say anything. It's all going to show up on Facebook, how he's doing, how he's acting. We all see it. So I think that's why people felt comfortable enough to come to me, because they'd asked him some questions in the DM and he responded with, don't pay attention to what Mickey's saying, blah, 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 blah. So again, that's where people weren't willing to be honest on Facebook when the questions were being asked. I was willing to be
Hey,
honest and I asked my questions because
let me ask you a
I have every
question.
right
Let me
to.
ask you a question. Let me
Okay.
ask you a question, and I'm gonna end on this.
Sure.
But with the screenshots that you received, did you get the whole conversation, or did you get my response?
Yes, I got the whole conversation
Okay.
Okay.
From the things that they said, along with
several
what
times.
I said.
Yes,
Okay. Okay.
And
yes.
I'm not even sure if
From
that's
where the
mhm.
conversation started.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, from what
Yeah, and
look now, if you so and the reason why I say it's from where it started is because
mhm.
the responses flowed together. So if there was something that had been a response or something that had been deleted, they wouldn't have flowed like they flowed. So that's why I felt confident
Well, that's
in
not true.
that was an accurate conversation.
So
Now for me,
even I would
now
just
for
say
me
that
going
even if
forward,
it's
I've accepted the apology.
okay.
Yeah, I've accepted the apology. So I
Hmm.
think I think right now we're diminishing your podcast. So I'm good with the
No, we're good.
apology.
We're good.
We
Go
all
ahead.
know where we stand. Like,
Hmm.
right. And so I think we don't have to keep talking about it. We'll work through it, like you said. Danny and I will work through it. And either we, you know what, either we do or we don't.
So I would hope that we could just stay positive and hope that it does get worked out. And I just can't get past, and I will get past it, but I just have I do take exception with the people who are, instead of going directly to Danny and asking their questions, they're coming to you and saying that they had similar questions, but decided to just base whether or not they went to Danny directly, base that on the interaction that you and Danny had. And so, you know, I would say um, people should give others a chance to either defend themselves or to answer their questions and to go off their own experiences as opposed to what they are assuming is the experience of others. And you're not diminishing the podcast.
Fair enough.
This episode is about the festival,
Oh,
and
okay.
this portion of this episode is about clarifying what Danny was apologizing about and what your
Mhm.
issues were. All right. Okay. So where do we go from here, y'all?
Okay. Yeah.
So I would like to think that if this is about the festival and not about a grievance between me and Mickey, that we can discuss how you know how much the festival has done for the alumni. In the instance of the conversation that Mickey brought up, being in the airport and somebody saying that, I don't know you in particularly, but I know you from the picnic, and that's what's happening with this cookout. Like this, that's what I thought particularly that we were going to be talking about as it relates to the festival and how many advantages and how many good things have come from this. I don't mind addressing this situation with Mickey. Um, but it was
Well,
it had become a non-starter for me after last year.
all right,
Um,
I get it, Danny, but just to respond to what you're saying, um, it is about the festival, but me personally, like I said in part one, and in the intro, was that I've been hearing different things. I've been hearing this and that, people making these allegations and these accusations of you. All right. And I didn't understand them. And I wanted to better understand them. But I also realized that there were people who were either not coming to the festival because of these grumblings behind the scenes or reluctantly
Mhm.
participating. because of these grumblings behind the scenes. And then there was also the questions about why is there a fee if it's being sponsored. And so in part one, we cleared that up in terms of uh, an individual being a sponsor, but not footing the entire bill. And I think that it's important to cover these types of these types of issues, and even if it's
Mhm.
just from a small pocket of classmates or future or fellow alumni, I think it's important to clarify that so that we can get these questions out of the way and we can get everyone to participate cheerfully and to grow the festival in a manner that
Right.
gives you even more success than you've experienced, and also gives you a more of an opportunity to give back to the school in ways that you choose. So that's why we spent this time, because I didn't want to just talk about the festival and all of the great things about it. We need to do that as well. But if we don't, then people watching this are going to be like, well, I still feel like there's something shady going on, and they didn't even talk about that. So, I'm still not going. Or if I'm going, there's always going to be some type of conversation and back and forth with whoever is representing that class about why they should be participating. So I'm just trying to hopefully bring some healing between you and Mickey, and also remove all of the doubt and nonsense that has been attached to this great event, in some ways with validity, and in other ways not necessarily even worth the time or not even substantiated. And so I just wanted to get us some clarity on that and move forward. So that's why we're talking about that. And sometimes you have to, just like when we built the sand pit at, at Southwest DeKalb, I don't think people knew we actually built that thing,
Mhm.
right? Buck Godfrey had all of those train track posts that line the train tracks on the side. He had a ton of those delivered, and then he had like 8 piles of sand
Sand.
dumped, 8 piles, big hills
Yeah.
of sand. And so what we did was we had to run over those hills. We did that a few times, right? We did that, I mean, like 20 times, 20 rounds. And then we had to move the actual wood pieces, those big blocks or whatever. We had to move those to shape the sand
Those
pit,
railroad
those railroad beams, right?
ties.
We had to move those, put them in place, and then
Mhm.
we had to, because that's what we did first. And then the dump trucks came in and dumped the sand, right? And then we didn't have shovels. We had to we had to move the sand onto tarps, and then drag the tarps and empty the tarps and spread the sand that way, right? And then after doing all of that stuff, then the sand pit came alive and we were able to run it. And we had some of the fastest and strongest runners on the football field every season moving after that. And so I'm,
Mhm.
I'm, I'm likening this conversation to clearing that space, bringing in the railroad beams, bringing in the hills of sand, moving it around, clearing it, getting it out the way, and then moving forward. I hope that makes sense.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So
Right.
Danny,
That that's
tell us
that,
some of the
that's really what does.
one more time, Mickey.
I said that's what builds character. Having to work for
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So Danny, tell us some of the best things that have happened relative to the alumni festival that you'd like to share with us.
Well, one of the things that I can't really take a lot of credit for, um, that came out of it was we wound up getting a SWD day in DeKalb County on August the 5th, and that was actually orchestrated by Erica Slayton. She was
Okay.
actually working. She was actually class of '99. She was actually working. I don't know. She was working for one of the commissioners, or she was friends with one of the commissioners, but she brung it up to me. I thought it would be a great idea if we can get it accomplished. And Larry, I can't think of his name right now, his last name.
Was he the
But he was
commissioner?
one. Yeah, he was the commissioner at the time, and he came out, did the presentation with the plaque, and August the 5th is Southwest DeKalb Day in DeKalb County.
Was that at Salem Park? Was that at the Salem Park?
Yeah.
Okay, I remember that.
That was at Salem Park. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And now, officially, like, it's Southwest DeKalb Day on August the 5th every year in DeKalb County. But that came from the festival.
Okay.
Like, that's just some of the things. That's one of the things that I would be the most proud of, that I was a part of. It wasn't something that I orchestrated. It actually came from Erica, like I said, but
okay,
our partnership helped bring that together.
And Erica Slayton is class of what?
99.
All right, 99. All right.
She's actually a delegate in the state of Georgia right now.
Oh wow. Okay, Erica Slayton, class of 99. Excellent. All right, good stuff.
Yeah. And let me give you a little bit more information about her. So she was the first person. She was the first woman to get a scholarship in soccer from Southwest DeKalb.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So she has real ties to the community. Like, she's a real, like, bleed blue and old gold Panther.
Awesome. Awesome.
And the participation and how, how big the festival was becoming, that was her saying, you know what, I want to do my part to assist as much as I can too.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right.
Go
ahead.
And another thing, one of the other things that came from this, that's kind of a pat on the back for the entire alumni, is other schools were doing alumni picnics or whatever.
Okay.
But not at the scale that we were doing it.
Oh, okay.
I've actually had people from Columbia call me and say, "Hey, what did y'all do to get it to where it is right now?" I talked to some people from McNair Walker. Hey, what did y'all do to get it where it is right now? You know what I mean? I talked to somebody that went to Towers. Like, what did y'all do to get it to where it is? So it wasn't so much about my vision, because it was just a vision in my head, but for it to actually come to fruition and to have the participation that it's had is about the alumni. That's why it's called the Southwest DeKalb Alumni Festival, right? Because it's more about the alumni than it is about me. I just happen to be the person that organized it and was able to, just kind of lead people into the direction that we're going, because it's not just about me, because there's all the class reps, that put in the class, that put in the work, that organize their classes, like all those things that come together, was not just, all from me.
Right.
I had lots of help. I did. Like, I had lots of help, but everybody came together with my vision for it to become what it is today. So that's why I'm not really, Mickey said to me, one day, when we were talking, well, not one day, but when we were talking last week,
sorry to cut you off, Danny, but shout out to the Southwest DeKalb alumni and all the delegates that have helped during this. Shout out to y'all, because Southwest, say it with your chest.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? We the best.
That's right.
But go ahead. I'm sorry, bro. Go ahead.
That's right. Mickey had, when we were talking last week, and Mickey said, I said that this was the Danny show. And I did say that. And I meant that when I said it. Because I was the orchestrator and the organizer of where, how things were coming together. Right. So I wasn't saying, when I said that to her, I was being arrogant and facetious. I was, because we were, kind of going back and forth with one another. But, the facts are the facts. Right. So, even though I was out, and I say this wholeheartedly with my whole chest, even though I was out front, it still does not matter if the alumni is not involved. If everybody who attends doesn't take time to buy tents, buy banners, set up food, like, if everybody doesn't come,
right,
like, it'll be my show by myself.
Yeah, you'd be out there by yourself. Let me ask you. You mentioned it sounds like what you're saying is the way you said it back then in terms of being the Danny show. It was coming from a place of emotion.
Yeah,
You said before that you'd have thoughts about giving it up because you were tired of what you were hearing and all of the bickering and stuff like that.
yeah,
Let
yeah.
me ask you, 2025, Danny 2025. If you could speak to Danny of whenever that was that said it in that way, would you tell him to say it differently?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I would, because with time always comes education and experience.
Okay.
And I wouldn't say it that way.
Okay.
Um,
How
I
would you say it?
I probably would say, um, I take my time to organize, to I take my time to bring this thing together.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't take everybody else's work lightly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's what I would say.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I have put in the most sweat equity,
Mm-hmm.
right? I have done the most. I have, you know, been out front. I am the one that signed the paperwork. I am the one that gets insurance. Like,
Right.
well, I'm not personally paying for the insurance. I did a couple times,
Right.
but like I am the one whose names, is on paperwork. So if
Mm-hmm.
anything ever goes wrong, like they're not gonna go to the whole alumni. They're gonna come to me, right?
That's true.
Right?
That's
Because
true.
even instances, let me give you an
But
example.
is that not, but
So when we were at Port of
Oh,
Sanford.
hold on, Danny. Hold on, Danny. Just hold that. Let's put a pin in that thought just for a
Okay.
second, because I think it's important to really emphasize that it's the Southwest DeKalb Alumni Festival, and you are definitely appreciative of all the participation and help, and you understand that there would be no festival without the alumni. But if something were to go down, if there were to be an issue, it would be on the organizer, who happens to be Danny Davison, and
Right.
not the entire Southwest DeKalb Alumni Association. So I think that's important. That's a very important point to make. But I would love to get Mickey to share what she was going to say on that.
my thought process is that is on Danny because that is what Danny chose. And over the years when we've had this alumni picnic, I worked for a broker. I could have gotten an event insurance at a great price. I don't know what
Mm-hmm.
price he paid for certain things. And
Mm-hmm.
again, if you don't ask people that have expertise in other things, then
Mm-hmm.
yeah, then everything falls on your shoulders. But you have to allow people to assist. And if you choose not to allow people to assist in their
Mm-hmm.
area of expertise, then
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's fine to say me, I, but the me, I is your choice, not because you didn't, everything has a committee. Well, we had our 40th reunion, last year. We had committees. We had a hospitality committee. We had
Okay.
a registration committee. So
Mm-hmm.
if you don't allow people to assist, then yeah, it's going to be me, as opposed to letting people not make you can be the center. It can be your vision. It can be your idea. But delegation is the key to all leadership. And that's important.
But Mickey, let me ask you a question. If the AJC were to write an article about, uh, I'm not even going to use the festival for this example because I don't want to give that energy and put that out there in the universe. But if something happens at, let's say, a famous artist's concert, or a famous artist puts
Mhm,
on an event, and something happens there, um,
mhm,
the newspaper, the
mhm.
news outlets, they're not going to talk about who insured the event. They're going to talk about the organizer. Would you agree?
Right.
I think they would talk about with the whole thing with Travis Scott. They didn't talk about Travis Scott's organization. They talked about Travis Scott. So
Mm-hmm.
when you're
Mm-hmm.
talking
That's
about
my
the
point.
Southwest DeKalb Alumni Festival, then
Mm-hmm.
then you're talking about the Southwest DeKalb Alumni Festival. So what the AJC would write about is
Mm-hmm.
the Southwest DeKalb Alumni Festival. Now, would
And
somebody throw
who the
Danny under the
organizer? Oh,
bus?
absolutely.
Absolutely,
And
somebody would,
yes,
because
and organized by Danny Davison.
they would say,
Mm-hmm.
well, what they would say is, right, Danny organized everything, and that's why Danny would be thrown under the bus on his own, because he has not allowed anybody else to assist. Now,
No,
you could throw, if it's a Southwest DeKalb alumni, hold on, if it's a Southwest DeKalb alumni festival and something happens, if there is a Southwest DeKalb alumni festival committee, then that's who gets the blame for it, not just one person, because there's a committee of people. Because Southwest DeKalb is not just one thing like a celebrity is. Southwest DeKalb is a unity of people. We are all Southwest DeKalb. So if you share the responsibilities throughout a
Mm-hmm.
Southwest DeKalb committee, alumni
Mm-hmm.
festival committee, then that's who's on the hook. But if you only do it me, then yes, in the AJC, it's going to be Danny.
Danny, what do you say to that?
So that doesn't really make sense to me, and I'm gonna tell you why it doesn't make sense to me. Because even if we look at the president in his cabinet, right? If somebody in his cabinet does something wrong, it's always a reflection on the president, right? So even with any committee, amongst the committee, there's always going to be somebody at the top. There's always going to be somebody that has to assume responsibility for things that go wrong, right? So, as I was about to say, when we had the event at the Port of Sanford Center, right, and some things went on across the street,
Okay,
at the park, at the church, right? They came to me, right? They came to me and said, "Hey, there were people in cars doing things at this church." They didn't say, "Hey, Dan, I need you to get the whole alumni together.
Because you're the
I need you to
face,
get the whole
not the
alumni
committee."
together."
let them finish. Let them finish, Mickey. So,
You know,
they weren't praying over there in them cars, huh?
No, they weren't praying. They weren't praying, right?
No.
So like they didn't say, "Hey, Danny, I need you to get everybody who was at the park together, and we need to tell everybody what happened."
Okay.
Right? When we were at Buck Godfrey Stadium and they were shooting firecrackers, and I said before, we cannot do fireworks.
Right.
They still did fireworks. They didn't say, "Hey, Danny, I need you to get the whole alumni together so we can tell everybody they can't come back." No, that's not how that goes, right? Even having a committee, it doesn't matter, because there's always going to be somebody that has to assume responsibility, right? Somebody always has to be at the top. There's always going to be somebody,
a president,
yeah.
CEO.
It's always going to be. There's always going to be somebody.
Okay.
So, and I understand in the reference that that you're making about me being a loner doing this. I get it. I trust me. I understand exactly what you're saying, right? And there were iterations of me trying to have a committee, of me trying to get help from other people, but it wasn't. People weren't necessarily trying to help. They just wanted to see what was going on, like what was actually happening. You know, how things were playing out. Like they weren't really there to assist, as if something nefarious was going on with the actual festival, right? Because when I needed the help, they was like, "Oh, I can't do it." "Well, can you do?" "Well, no, I can't do it." You know, but there was always someone telling me, "Well, maybe you should do it this way, or maybe you should do it that way." You know what I'm saying? So because if you've ever organized a large event, there's always a small group of people that want you to do it their way.
What's large? What do you think is large?
So anything, I would say anything over 100 people.
Okay, because I will say, like, I think it's this shirt I'm wearing is from my 25th class reunion.
Yeah.
And we didn't have 1,000 people, right? But let me tell you something. I think you already know where I'm going with this.
I know.
But Mickey, I want to ask Mickey.
I already know.
Have you had any experiences of trying to pull your class together or organize something like that? I'm
Absolutely.
gonna share my experience, but I'd love to hear
Listen,
yours.
so so
Ooh,
much
Lord have
so,
mercy.
let me tell you, so
Yeah.
much so that I listen, it would, when you talk about trial and tribulation,
Oh my goodness.
because it was a hot mess. It was a hot mess. And we didn't have 100 people. And when I
Mm.
tell you, because again,
Mm-hmm.
when I'm sharing something and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
it's this is, hey, listen, this is the cutoff. I'm done. And they were
Right.
like, well, Mickey, can we give people grace? I sure can't, because life is
Mm.
lifing for all of us. And it
Mm.
was such, for me, it was such a back and forth, because I said, listen, here's my cutoff. I'm heading out of town. They've had since November of last year. We've had 9 months to get the money in. And if you don't have it in by July, you're just not going to get anything.
Uh-huh.
And they were like, oh, Mickey, well, that's not fair. I said, listen, life is lifing for all of us, for all of us. And it
Hey.
got so bad that I said, you know what? Let me tell you what I'm not going to do. Let me tell you what I'm not going to do. Mickey's blood pressure is up. I'm out.
Mm. Mm.
I'm done.
Mm.
I had all the stuff that I had sent in. I gave it to everybody. And they were like, well,
Mm.
once you try to tell me how to run my piece, and my piece
Mm.
is set up, it's ready. It's ready to
Mm.
go. I said,
Mm.
no, I'm out. You all go ahead. Do you, boo. I'm out.
Danny, why are you looking like that?
Because Mickey sounds like she sounds
Mm-mm.
like me.
How so?
So no
Uh,
reason why I couldn't have been on the committee. See?
No, go ahead, Danny. Say what you're saying.
no, yeah, but that
You
was my
took off the
point. Like,
glasses.
I mean, that's my point. Like, there's always me and Mickey could never work together because we clash,
I
right?
don't think
I
so.
don't
I
I don't think
disagree.
Mickey
I
don't have good
disagree.
ideas.
I
I don't
disagree.
think she
I
don't have good
disagree.
ideas.
I disagree.
You know.
I think y'all would work well together. However, I'm just saying, I don't I don't believe in putting that type of energy out there.
Okay,
And
yeah,
and
I see
and,
what you're saying.
and so
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah, yeah,
and so I think that there is I think people will always say, to the point where it's cliche, that communication is key.
Right.
People always say that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they don't know that there's a difference between poor communication and communicating
Effective.
effectively.
Yes.
It's totally different. And so people will swear up and down that they know what it is to be in a committee, to be a part of an organization, to plan a thing until
Mm-hmm.
they're in there. So
Mm-hmm.
there are 3 people
Mm-hmm.
right now having this conversation
Exactly.
who have planned things.
Yes.
And all 3 of us, I think, and correct me
Mm-hmm.
if I'm wrong, I don't want to assume incorrectly, but I get the impression that all 3 of us were planning things that were very important to us, that we really cared about, that we wanted
Mm-hmm.
everyone to enjoy, but it was like herding cats trying to get people to work together. And I'm not talking about just the people participating. I'm talking about the so-called committee leaders,
Right.
right?
Right.
The so-called
Yes.
committee leaders.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
will say too that I had a similar experience with Danny. I'm not going to say if it was with my reunion or if it was when I was leading the Alumni Association, but I had a similar experience where people say they want to help and they want to be a part of it, and I'm just trying to be inclusive. I know I can do it solo,
Mm-hmm.
but I know it's best not to do it solo, right? But I don't have an opportunity to truly vet people.
Right.
I'm not looking at resumes, right? To
Right.
see if you can actually do what you say you're going to do. I'm just trusting that at the very least you're going
Right.
to contribute positively. And then it comes out that you're not even here to contribute. You're just here to either be nosy or interfere with the
Yeah.
process
Yeah.
or make
Yeah. Yeah.
sure it doesn't succeed.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
Or bring
amazing.
or bring
It's a
new ideas after things or bring new ideas after things have already been decided on. This is what we're
it,
doing.
it,
Oh, let me show
right.
up this week and give you all other stuff to do.
Instead of there go them glasses again.
Yes.
instead instead of just saying, okay, I'm here to help. What it is that what's your vision, and how can I help it come to fruition? How can I help it make it happen? That's not what they're there for. Unfortunately, Mickey
Yeah.
and Danny, you both realize and know that there are some people who are just messy, and they
Yeah.
just out to do whatever, and they have ulterior motives. They
Yeah.
coming in there talking about they're here to help and make it the best, but they actually there for something else.
Yeah.
And it is,
They have a
I
whole
tell
nother
you,
agenda.
it can make you want to just do things by yourself,
Yeah.
because it's hard enough doing it.
Yeah.
But then now I got to manage all these
Right. I
personalities
agree.
of people who aren't trying to help. I mean, all right, I'm done preaching. Y'all go ahead. What's up?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And that's
I
why
get it. I get
turned
it.
in,
I get it.
that's why it
One more
turned
thing.
into me.
One more thing. All right.
Yeah.
So y'all may know I'm a member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated.
That's right.
Right. And I was bossless,
Mhm.
which is president of the chapter, between 2016 and 2018. I did 2 terms. And when I won the election to serve as bossless for the first year, there were people coming to me left and right, calling, "I got you, bro. Whatever you need, let me know. Let me know." But they didn't know that I already had a list of things that I needed, right? And
Right.
one bro, when he called and said that,
Right.
I said, "Hey, perfect. Here's what I got for you." And they were like, "Man, I ain't mean that. I was just saying
Yeah.
it." You know,
Yeah.
he was
Yeah.
joking. He was joking, right? But it was so funny because that's true. And I'm not saying necessarily with that organization, but it's so funny that people, like with the alumni
Right.
festival, the alumni, your class reunions, they come and they're like, "Whatever you need." And what they really saying is, "Whatever you need, as long as it's what I want to do." And it's doing it the
Bingo.
way I
Right.
want to do it.
Bingo.
Okay, go ahead,
Yeah.
Danny.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
But
agree
you're
with
absolutely
I
right.
agree with that. I agree with that. And I and I think another piece of why I said, Marlon, how you mentioned that there's been rumblings in the background. You've heard, not just me,
Mhm.
there are other people with rumblings in the background.
Right,
I'm
right.
just probably the only one that's willing to be vocal. So
Hmm.
another piece of me saying, "Hey, Danny, let me help." There are people that are not vocal. They're keyboard warriors, but they don't want to be outed within the alumni group, because
Hmm.
it's a big group. I don't mind, out me. It doesn't matter. Saying, "Hey, let me help. Let me step in. Let me go to those meetings," is because there are people that have been divided based upon the arguments that Danny and I have had up front on Facebook over the past couple of years. So in my
Hmm.
mind, not only am I being able to see what is happening firsthand and being able to participate and help if I can help, I can also help quell those rumors because people are saying, "Oh, so what's going on with you and Danny this year? What's happening with this? What's happening with that?" And at
Hmm.
least, if nothing else, I can be a positive voice if possible. But once you stymie me and say, "Yeah, I don't want to, I don't want this, I don't want Mickey to be a part of it. I don't like the way she's going to do things." That just feeds into the fire of how people feel and how people talk about what's going on, what's happening. So to me, when you mentioned earlier, "Oh, I think Mickey and Danny could work together." I think Mickey and Danny could work together as long as understanding that we have to be honest with each other. We have to be very clear, and there's no name calling. And if
Okay.
those three things could happen, I
Hmm.
think we could make it transparent for the people that are reaching out to me separately saying, "Hey this, hey that, hey this, hey that," because I'm transparent. I don't sugarcoat and I don't hide. If nothing else, if it's clear, then I'm
Hmm.
not only somebody that's there to see that it's clear, Danny, I can be your advocate. But when you shut me out because I'm the one asking questions, that doesn't look good. And that's
Okay.
that's
So,
my point of view.
all right, understood. Let me ask this question. So, you said honesty, clarity, and no name calling, right? Okay. So,
Exactly.
what I
Yes.
would like to see, and this may not happen here on this call, but I would like to see, and Mickey, hopefully you're open to this. I would like to see if Danny so chooses, and he thinks of something that you could assist with, because obviously you've got a lot to offer. Would you be willing to work with him in the capacity that he delegates and designates, or would it have to be your way?
I can.
Okay.
Well,
All right.
if
Well,
you're
cool.
delegating something to me, it's going to be my way because you're delegating it to me to handle it.
That's why it's not
Now,
gonna
that's
work.
not the
Well, well,
whole
well,
thing.
well.
If
Yeah,
you're
that's
if you're
why it's not gonna work.
No. Well, I hear you, but here's the thing.
why?
Because I hear what Danny's saying, and I hear what you're saying. But let's say that we are communicating effectively, right? And we have a discussion
Mhm,
and we have a conversation
mhm,
and we say, okay, Mickey, here's what I need. I'm being Danny. Okay, here's what I need, and here's the desired outcome.
mhm,
And what are your thoughts on how we
mhm.
can make this happen? And you present a few ideas and he presents a few ideas, and then you guys meet in the middle where you're both happy and it's mutually beneficial. I think that could work. But I think just off the surface of just saying it's got to be my way, and Danny saying it's not going to work, I think you're kind of
Right.
limiting what can happen. All right, so I'm done being peacemaker and festival matchmaker.
Mediator.
You know, but let's keep going. Mickey, what good things, when you did go to the festival, what good things did you experience?
I got to see people that I hadn't seen in years,
Mm-hmm.
which is always good.
Right.
You got to meet some of the younger generation. I appreciate the fact that each year I attend the picnic. I collect money for the wrestling team. I walk around with my bucket and I collect anywhere from $300 to $400 for the wrestling team every single alumni picnic. I've
Mm-hmm.
gotten to meet people that wrestled. Hey, Danny, I see your hands
Go
up.
ahead.
You
Go
want to
ahead.
say
I
something?
got you,
No,
Dan.
I
Go
just
ahead,
want.
Mickey.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Mickey. Go ahead and finish, Mickey. I'm gonna let
I
Danny
just
talk
wanted to
out.
make a point.
Oh,
Yes, sir.
oh,
Go
You
ahead.
got yeah.
um, and I appreciate the fact that I can do that. I can go around, I can collect money for the wrestling team because
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the few sports that nobody pays attention to. And these kids are doing great. They're
Mm-hmm.
winning at state, they're
Yes, they
winning
are.
sectionals, regionals, all kinds of stuff, and nobody's paying attention. And it's a sport that there's not a lot of money in.
Mm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
Coach Helena, Coach Johnson. My son wrestled at High Dollar Heritage in high
Okay.
school, and
Mm-hmm.
Coach Johnson and Coach Helena were there to help. They gave him pointers on how to beat other kids, and my son ended up going to state as well. So from that point forward, when I ran into Coach Johnson at one of the sectionals, I
Mm-hmm.
started giving back to wrestling. I'm,
Mm-hmm.
I did my share with football, but I'm going to give to wrestling because I know that's a sport that is it's not though they're doing great, it's not well recognized.
Got you. I want to say
It's not like
something,
we have
Mickey.
alumni going to wrestling meet.
That's true. That's
Yeah.
true.
So let me ask Mickey directly. So when you started, did me and you ever have a conversation about going around to the different classes, taking donations from the alumni for the wrestling team?
Mm. Mm.
No, I just got a bucket and put Southwest
Right,
DeKalb Wrestling
right,
on it. Southwest
right.
DeKalb Wrestling Fund. I still have it
So
downstairs
that's
in
my
my
point.
garage. I taped
Right,
I taped a cardboard sign to it, and I said, "Hey, I'm gonna collect for Southwest DeKalb Wrestling."
Yeah,
And
I
I
think he
walked
was
around
making
to
a point, though,
everybody,
Mickey.
and I
I think,
collected money.
yeah. I think he was making a point, though, Mickey. What was your point, Danny?
Okay.
yeah. So there were many people, many alumni that came to me and said, "Hey, I think we should do this," or "I want to attempt to do this,"
Mm-hmm.
because there's so many alumni in one area, right?
Okay. Okay.
And this is what I mean by people only come to me when there's a problem, right? There
Mm.
were people who came to me and said, "Why are there people out here asking for money?"
Mm. Mm.
Right? Why are
Mm.
there people, you know, lobbying or petitioning people for money
Mm.
when that's not what this event is for?
Mm.
Now, was that a small group of people? It was. It was a small group of people.
Okay.
So I addressed those group of people, but I don't know who else felt like that in the same point that you guys were making. Just because those people were brave enough to come and say something to me about those people asking doesn't mean that there were a lot more people wanting to know why is this okay.
Okay.
Right. So there were people out there like because nobody, and what it looks like is if I say, hey, Mickey's going to be out there with a bucket for the wrestling team, that adds a legitimate ask behind what you're doing, right? Because it's attached to the alumni festival. When you do it on your own, you look like you're just taking money from people. Even though you may not be doing it, that's what it looks like. Right. So somebody was out there a couple years ago with the go-karts, driving people around. Somebody asked me, were they a part of the festival? No, they weren't. And they were, you know, taking money or whatever. So, but I still had to assume responsibility for it. That's the point that I'm trying to make.
Okay.
Like these little conversations that's going on, I have to carry the weight of that stuff. I have to carry the weight. So it's not a small thing about me.
Hold on.
It's not a small thing of me standing alone doing things on my own. Like, no, there are thousands of people at this alumni festival.
Right.
And there are a few people with an agenda. And their agenda falls on me.
And it sounds like you have some people who have although possibly problematic, but positively motivated agenda like Mickey's. And then you have some people who are really just out there trying to hustle and get what they can out of the
right
group. I get that. I hear that. That can be definitely an issue. Can I say something about I would like to say something about what I have enjoyed about the festival. I have not been able to get out there recently for a variety of reasons, whether it was, just haven't been able to get out there in recent years. And I'm so mad that I missed it, because one of the things that I like the most about the festival is it reminds me of being back in high school. It's one thing to have a class reunion, right? That's great. I love that. We just had, we are doing class of 89 is making an effort to be more intentional about meeting up more often than just when it's the typical reunion cycle, right? But being at the festival, to be there, it's so special to me, because I got to Southwest DeKalb in September of '84, right? So that means I was there with the class of '85, '86,
you hit the nail on the head, Marlon.
'87 and '88, right? That's what I was there with, right? And then when I
you
moved
missed the good people, '84.
and then when I moved to,
became a senior.
Then when I was in the 9th grade, I was with the class of '86, you know what I'm saying? And then the class of '90, right? And then as I got older, you add on, you lose one class, but then you add on, you lost the class of '88, but then now you have the class of '91, right? And so on and so forth. And so the festival allows me to, and others obviously,
5 years ahead, 5 years back.
years behind. And then on top of that, beyond the time of the people I was in school with, because now I get to be around the people who were in school with my younger brother, Rodney, and then my youngest brother, Kevin. And so all of these family members, I mean, it's so good, and it's so wonderful to be around, to feel like I'm back in school, and to be around all of these people who I have, we've created relationships. we've bonded over the years, and we've shared different experiences, both good and bad. And like you said, Mickey, earlier about things that create character. We had a lot of character building moments that some of us still grieve about. But the Southwest DeKalb
Right.
Alumni Festival offered that opportunity to be around people from the class of 84 all the way to the class of 90, 93, 94, and beyond. And the last thing I'll say on that particular note is, like when Mickey mentioned someone hearing her voice at the airport, which I think is dope.
Dope as
I
hell.
I remember the last it was the Saturday night. It may have been the Saturday or Sunday night of no, it was the Sunday night, because we had a 3-day a reunion weekend and for our 25th reunion. And that Sunday night, I was leaving. I think it was still Dugan's at the time on Flat Shoals, and I stopped at the Waffle House that's right where I think the AutoZone used to be. Back in the day, it was the Food Giant, and then they had the Cindy's over there. You remember that?
Yeah.
And so I go I'm walking into the Waffle House, and this guy's coming out, and he says SWD 89. And I was like, yeah, what's up, man? He's like, I said, you go to Southwest? He said, yeah. I said, well, yeah, you came out. And he said something like, I mean, let's just say it was 2005 or something, right? And I was like,
Right.
good to meet. I was like, good to meet you, 2005. And he was like, good to meet you, 89. And that's like Southwest DeKalb in a nutshell. And for me, and the festival in a nutshell, you get to be around all of these people who basically helped you become who you are today. So that's one of the things I really love about the festival. But I will say, Danny, if there is ever a way to climatize the festival, because it'd be hot out there.
Yeah, I know.
And the older we get, the hotter it feels, But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. No, but Mickey, were you getting ready to say something? I don't want to interrupt you.
No. What I was going to say is, and the reason why people are coming to you directly is because you are all we see. If there's a Southwest DeKalb Alumni Festival committee, there are other people that they can address. So because it's you, yes. And I posted, once we collected the money, I posted in there how much we collected, what we did. You're the only one with the microphone usually. I think one year I took the microphone from you. Again, it's the bossy in me. Sorry. And I said, hey, I'm coming around collecting money for the wrestling team. and I admit it. I told you. I said, I'm coming around collecting money for the wrestling team. I know everybody's got some money in your pocket. Give it up. And that's what I did, every year, because this is a sport that is, not recognized by us very well, but the state of wrestling and Georgia High School Wrestling Association, it is recognized because these kids do great. So I apologize to you, Danny, if people were coming up complaining about why I was collecting money, because I made it very clear why. I post, I put it out there, I say it out there. I make sure everybody knows exactly what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And once I collect, I put that in there as well. So if people came up to you and complained or had negative things to say because I was doing that, I apologize because, again, should have asked you, but I beg for forgiveness rather than ask for permission sometimes.
All right. So awesome. So we both, we both, when I say we, I'm talking about Danny and Mickey, have both admitted that there have been things that they've done
Definitely.
that could have been done differently. All right.
Well,
So
this is the first I've heard. No, but honestly, Marlon, this is the first I've heard that anybody ever complained. So I've been doing it for years.
Why?
I didn't do
Why
it
you
last
think
year or the year before.
Why do you think that, Mickey?
I don't
Why
know.
do you think this is the first time you hear about this?
Ooh. Take a
Are they too afraid to ask me?
No, take a couple of guesses, Mickey. I think he's trying to
Are they?
make a point.
I,
So
I
the
don't know.
reason why this is the
What's the
reason
point?
why the reason why you've never heard about it is because I was protecting you. I was protecting you. So I said, hey, yeah, I knew about it. Yeah, I was quite aware of it. That's
So so moving forward, now that we
Oh,
have
there
that
you go.
out there,
I'm
now that we,
sorry. My system was it's pouring down and lightning over here. I lost what you said, Danny. I apologize. Can you say it again? Why they didn't come to me?
No, the reason why they didn't come to you is because number one, I was the organizer, which meant that I knew about it, and not just you, but other people, right? So what I did was I took the brunt of the whatever the conversation was. I did it to protect you, right? I know you can handle it. It don't really matter. You can handle it,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, I don't agree.
You can handle it. But
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
purpose was to always to protect, like they say in the NFL, protect the shield, right? So the purpose was to always to protect the festival. Always. I'm always going to protect the festival. There's always going to be
Right.
murmurs
Absolutely.
and conversations and things that I hear about. I hear about everything. Everybody come to me and talk to me about with thousands of people, right? I have been in the middle of people mending their relationship because of the festival, right? I have helped
Yeah,
people organize
I would
their
agree with that. I
own
would agree with that.
class reunions because of the festival. So it's always important to protect the festival. I was never going to say, go talk to Mickey. I wasn't going to do that. I said, yeah, I knew about it. Yeah. And I should have posted it with the rest of the information so that everybody can know, because she probably would have made more money. She probably could have raised more money. That was my mistake. Yeah, but I knew about it.
Well, I would say that, just my humble opinion, to make sure that we don't have 30 people out there with buckets, it probably
Right.
would be good to get some type of plan in place. I don't know how much you collected, Mickey, but like Danny said, there might be a way to do it where, one, you don't have to go around with a bucket, and two, you get more money and more attention to the cause, because our boys have been kicking behind on that mat, and the girls.
Yeah, girls too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
The girls recently. So absolutely, I've been doing this for years, just trying to bring attention to it. And the reason why, and I can say honestly, another reason why I didn't go full out is because I didn't want anybody else to jump on that bandwagon.
Because
I
they
don't want
will.
football to walk around with a bucket. They will. And
They
so
Yeah.
will.
that's why I blindsided everybody, because I can tell you there were a few years ago when Tanks passed away, and they said, "Hey,
Mm.
listen, there's no money for the football team. There's no nothing. Kids
Mm.
need cleats." There were kids that were taping the front of their cleats up with duct
Mm-hmm.
tape.
We've
At
been
the
there.
time, I wasn't
Yep.
working,
Mm-hmm.
and I said, "No worries." I took $500 out of my pocket and I bought T-shirts. I stood there. Me and John Garrett was kind enough to come over and help me at the
Mm-hmm.
football game that night
Mm-hmm.
to sell T-shirts so we could raise money for the football team.
Right.
Nobody wanted to buy T-shirts. I didn't even break even. I ended up having to donate those T-shirts 5 years later
Mm.
to Goodwill so that I could get a write-off on them. So
Mm.
that's another for me. If I'm there trying to support the team with
Mm-hmm.
everything, and nobody can come that were coming into that and could support and buy a $15 T-shirt, to me at that point, nah, I'm going to go my own route. And I'm going to support who I know
Yeah.
supports me, and that's wrestling all the time.
Yeah. So it sounds like we all know that teamwork makes the dream work. So hopefully, moving forward, we can work together in a way that's conducive to everyone being successful.
Yeah. This festival has turned this festival is actually bigger than just a bunch of people getting together. It's actually bigger than that. And once
Yeah,
people actually
I
understand
would agree.
the purpose of what's actually happening, because there's no way you by yourself should have had to do something like that, right? So now, and let me say, and I can actually end on this. So that's where the festival is at right now. This is why all the donations go to the Alumni Association, right?
Okay.
We're not collecting money anymore to pay for expenses. Like the Alumni Association handles everything. Like, so that's why I keep pushing, you know, $300 is a minimal to participate. But if your class can do more, do more. So if the rest of the team needs some money, the Alumni Association can write a check. Boom. Because it's coming from the alumni, right? The PTSA, we gave the PTSA $1,300 last year. That came from the alumni, right? We helped three families this year from the festival, from money raised from the festival, right? All we have to do now is just take that one day and we can do all the work we need to do. But the festival had to get to this place, right? So that's why I don't feel bad anymore. All the things that happened, everything that was said, like I don't have any more grievances with anybody else. Mickey, I love you. Like, because this thing is sustainable now. All we have to do now is nurture it and keep it going. That's all we have to do. That's all we have to. Each class, all you have to do is give at least $300, and we continue to have 25, 26 classes. We can take care of our beloved Southwest DeKalb. We can do it because the festival is where it needs to be.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
And hopefully everybody else in DeKalb County, Columbia, Towers, you know, Walker, McNair, like they can take the same blueprint and do the same thing. You know, that's my hope. That
we don't care about that.
We can just take.
We don't care about that.
Well, I care about the community. I mean, for the you know, for the most part, you know what I'm saying. For the most part, I mean, nobody give a damn about Columbia and Max Care.
Stop it.
You know what I'm saying? We don't care about them.
No,
but for the most part,
care about them.
but to be able to facilitate the community, you know, that's what the actual goal is. And we have an opportunity to do that with the festival right now. Right. So we can do that.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully we can do that, and hopefully we can put this nonsense to rest. And all of you people who are out there trying to be messy in these inboxes, just stop it. Call that man yourself, or call Mickey yourself. You know, stop with all that nonsense. We grown. You know, you have to be a certain age to go to the festival anyway. And if you if you fit that criteria, you shouldn't be doing that type of nonsense anyway. But I get it. You know, it is what it is. Everyone's different, and they saw Mickey as the hired gun. You know, they just get her to.
That's exactly what
just go did. Right to Mickey and let Mickey shoot her shots at him. You know, get him.
Let Mickey be the 6-shot shooter.
Indeed. Good stuff.
I got a 15-round clip. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Okay. All right.
Well, cool. I hope this has been good for you guys, as it's been good for
therapeutic.
Me. I think it's been a good,
absolutely
good conversation. And you know, hopefully we can, whatever direction things go, and I'm talking about positively moving forward. I hope we can come together in a way that is positive and continues to bring healing to our community and bring the support to the school that it needs. Because, you know, when we were in school, that area, that zip code 30034 was like one of the, if not the wealthiest Black communities in the country.
Exactly.
And I don't think it's
Churchill
like
Downs
that anymore.
Was it?
Yeah,
it was it, right? But it's not. That's not the case anymore.
Yeah, it's not now.
And something else that has changed over the years is, you know, back then, there were households where you had parents, whether they were single parents,
two-parent households,
or two parents. You know, now what I understand is there are a lot of grandparents that are raising the children in
Mm-hmm.
that community. And that's a different story altogether. I mean, there are plenty of examples of children who were raised by grandparents who went on to do amazing things, but there are a lot of stories, and the statistics show that there are challenges that come with that. um, and you never know why those parents are not there to raise the children themselves. um, we have children who have parents that are incarcerated and parents who are deceased. I mean, it's just one of those things that is the situation now as time has gone. So um, we absolutely need, as an alumni, to come together in whatever way we choose. But as long as we're coming together in a positive way to provide some additional support and bring some positivity back to the school and the community, I think that's what we need to do.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I agree 100%.
I agree.
And thank Marlon. And Marlon, I appreciate you taking the baton on this. Trying to shed some light on some things. Attempting to mend the fence between me and Mickey.
Mm-hmm.
So I appreciate you.
For sure.
Taking the baton on this, and just trying to give everybody some perspective on how things are and what's going on. And I appreciate Mickey. I appreciate you for accepting my apology, and being even gracious enough to have the conversation with me about all these things. I just want to make sure we're doing right by the school that we say we love. Right. I just want to make sure because that's the one thing we all have in common. We all bleed blue and old gold, and we just want to see the success that we have all garnered, that we have all experienced. We want to see those kids have the same success, because I know for me, a lot of who I am was shaped walking through those hallways at Southwest DeKalb. Marlon was one of the very first influences, when I first got there. Like, Marlon punched me in the chest the day I met him. I know you probably don't remember that, but like, something you just don't forget. But again, like I said in the first episode, I was a big kid, right? So nobody ever really assumed I was that young, because I was big, not fat, but just I was a big kid for my size, but I understood what the punch in the chest meant. It wasn't him being, a bully or anything, because I had already been a part of the Southwest DeKalb family from a football standpoint. So I knew what it meant when it hurt like hell, but I knew what it meant, right? I knew exactly what it meant. So, and even with Elaine, like I was saying about Elaine, like Elaine had influence over me as well. And, I met Mickey far after we were both long gone, but we do have a relationship, fractured and mended as it is, right? If I see her out somewhere, I'm gonna buy a drink. But that's what the blue.
He only does that because he knows I can outdrink him.
Okay.
You probably can. You probably can. But again, Marlon, I appreciate you having a conversation and taking the baton on, just trying to shed some light on, the festival itself. And because Mickey, whether you believe it or not, you are really standing in for a lot of people. Right? Your grievances, or even your
I know.
Your thought process, you actually standing in for a lot of people. And we may not have even addressed all of everybody's grievances, but my goal was to at least handle or talk about the things that were important to you and address those things, and also bring more light so people can understand this is beyond me and you, and the festival has done way more than any small grievances that me and you can ever have, because so many good things have come out of it. Right.
And I agree with you with that, Danny, and I'm with you. Marlon, thank you for putting this together to make it so that Danny and I could talk to each other and communicate effectively with a mediator and a moderator, because I can tell you, as you already know, I get real hyped. I get rah rah. I am all about wait, Danny. Don't do that.
No, I love the fact. I love the fact
But
that
we
you
are,
can
you know,
admit those things. This is why I laugh, because you know who you are.
I have not changed. I am who I am. You know, I'm raised in the era with Steve and Stanley Davenport, who lived next door to me, and used to lie and say that my dog would keep them from coming home on time when my dog was in the garage. So, you know, these,
Stop
oh
snitching.
yeah, oh yeah,
I
I'm
know.
putting it out there.
Stop
Stop
snitching.
snitching.
I'm putting it out there.
The
I
statute of
am putting it out
limitations is
there.
not
I'm
passed
putting
yet,
it out there.
Mickey. Stop it,
No,
Mickey.
any, you know, so so
Stop it.
so I appreciate it, Marlon, honestly, because I got to hear some things from Danny that I did not know, and I hope that Danny
Mm,
also heard some things from me,
I did.
that so
I
it
did.
doesn't sound like, because I want to make it clear that it's not me attacking you, it's me asking questions. And if anybody that knows me, that has great ideas and they bring those ideas to me, I'm going to ask probably a good 50, 60 questions, because I
mm,
need to understand it from your perspective, and based also upon the way I see it. So if I see it, if you can have me see it the way you see it, and then you can see the shortcomings in your ideas based upon the way that I'm seeing things, then we're both a little bit more open to an overall bigger picture thought process. I do
mm,
appreciate, Danny, that you apologize. Absolutely accept your apology. Again, forgiveness will come with change behavior, but
mm.
I hear you. I appreciate you. And I really think that, yeah, we can do this, but I think that we got to put people in your pathway that maybe you don't like to hear, so that you can hear some other things.
Well,
Thank you
I
for
was.
clarifying the whole Rick, Rick Bush sponsorship, because that's been brought to me multiple times. Well, if Rick is sponsoring it, why are we paying for it? And just like how Marlon said, yeah, I'm fully aware how people sponsor things here and there. They sponsor certain pieces, but how you said it was the verbiage that was required in order for that to be done. So that clarified in my mind when I was talking to people that it was just about the verbiage, not about him sponsoring the whole thing. So
Yeah.
again, that's why I said verbiage is important, and how
Mhm,
you do things. So I'm glad that we cleared that piece up. And I will say that there are a lot of people that ask me questions and say, "Hey, ask Danny that." And I said, "No, you ask Danny that yourself."
right.
So I think that this was beneficial to allow people to hear both of our perspectives, both of our point of views. And as I said, Danny, you did bring more clarity to a number of the items that we were not aware of.
Hmm. And,
So I
and
appreciate both of you all for for participating in this and asking me to participate in it. I
for
appreciate that.
sure, for sure. Well, it's my pleasure to both of you. I appreciate you, and it's been my pleasure and honor to have you as guests on the show. Um, I think there's one thing I'd like to mention also. Um, I think it's a good point that you made, Mickey, about the sponsorship verbiage. Sponsored by versus an official sponsor of, totally different. And I think it would be
Correct.
helpful for that to be clarified, so that there isn't any misunderstanding about, no, there still is a fee that's required. And the other thing I'd like
Right.
to mention, this might be for another show, but Mickey, I don't know if you know this, but Danny, he said he was a big kid, and he was. And I don't remember punching you in the chest, bro. But
I know you don't, dog. It's
it
all
was out
good.
of love, right?
It's all good. Yeah.
But what Danny isn't saying is that Danny was quite quite the athlete back in the day, and I say this because I know I was pretty fast back in the day, but Danny, I do remember lining up and racing you. You and I think Terry Beckham was there, and part of that, and Danny was extremely fast to be the big kid that he was and to be as young as he was. But something that we may talk about another time, Danny, was I still remember, man, like yesterday. And I hope I don't get emotional, but I still remember like yesterday, Lorna getting on the intercom at Southwest DeKalb High School and asking the school to pray for you because you were in a car accident
Mm-hmm.
and you were in a coma.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember you coming back to school with a really serious scar on your head. I think you
Mm-hmm.
broke your leg or your hip or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
you know, as a football player, um, and please don't take this the wrong way, okay? But as a football player, um, you know, with all the conversations about CTE and also the research I've done
Mm-hmm.
on traumatic brain injuries and also, you know, knowing the impacts of concussive events and concussions uh, on human beings, period, but also on youth while they're in the developmental
Mm-hmm.
stage, right? And I think about, you know, the fact, Danny, that you made it out of that and that you're doing what you're doing now for us as alumni. And you know, I hope I'm not bringing up bad memories,
No, no,
but
no, man. That's a part of
but
my
I
story.
just but
Yeah.
I just remember that, you know, that you almost lost your life, man. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know if the story was accurate that you stole the car from your house and wasn't supposed to be driving anyway because you
Uh,
didn't have a license, but
something like that. It was something like that. Yeah, something like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
but the bottom line is, but the bottom line is, dude, you almost died, man, and you were a fantastic athlete, and I don't know the impact that had on your career as an athlete, right?
Yeah.
I don't know the
Yeah.
impact that had on you, but I do know, man, that you know, in terms of big plays in life, you know, this festival is a big play, bro, and
I appreciate it.
I appreciate what you've done for the school, and I appreciate what you're going to continue to do. You know, I know those folks get mad when they see that sign on the highway talking about expect delays, Southwest DeKalb Alumni Festival this
Yes, they
weekend,
do. Yes,
right?
they do.
You know, they angry about that, but they'll be all right.
Yeah.
Start with
But
D. D.
the
Start with the cat.
Southwest DeKalb, you know,
That's right.
and so
D.
I did want to just say that and acknowledge that, man, that, you know, I appreciate the journey you've been. Mickey, you ask a ton of questions because you're highly intelligent. You know, I think you told me you skipped your junior year.
I did.
You know, I mean, who does that?
I did. I went
who
from
goes
10th grade to 12th grade.
who goes from 10th grade to 12th grade, right? You know, big brains. That's what happens. And so,
Yeah.
you know, those questions are a sign of you caring and also having high intelligence. So I appreciate both of y'all. I appreciate your stories. And, you know, I look forward to having you guys back on the show um, in some capacity or another. And I'm also looking forward to, I know you guys know this person, bringing on the one and only Chris Sharp, you know, the Southwest
Oh,
DeKalb,
absolutely.
the
The
photographer
photographer.
of
Yeah.
Southwest DeKalb,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah. 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 Vital. Yeah.
who's capturing all of these memories from
Yeah.
the alumni festival and other events, you know,
Yeah.
You have
and
his
he
number?
is, I do. I mean, that's how I
Okay.
got your number, you know,
Oh, okay.
and so he is, you know, and Chris is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to
Man,
the history
Chris
of
got a
Southwest
story,
DeKalb.
man. That's amazing. I'm glad you're doing that
Mhm.
because Chris has a wealth of information that we can all use.
Absolutely, absolutely. Him and
Yeah,
Lance
we can all
Davenport,
use. Yeah,
are like, you know, the
yeah,
Southwest DeKalb archive keepers and
Gurus.
scholars,
yeah,
Hmm.
gurus, you
yeah.
know. So I'm
That's
looking
awesome,
forward
man.
to having Chris Sharp on the show. He's already agreed to do it. We just got to figure out when and where, when and what time. And
Okay.
the same for Lance Davenport. But again, with all my heart and all my love, you know, thank you to both of you. That navy blue and old gold still runs deep in our veins. And I
Yes.
really appreciate y'all coming on here and telling your stories and giving your perspectives and being vulnerable so that everyone can hear and see what's going on with you too. And the positive outcome that we've gotten from this today has been phenomenal. So thank you.
Thank
Thank you. I
you. Yeah,
appreciate it.
I feel positive about this. So I think going forward, we should be able to make this go work.
Indeed. Indeed. All right, y'all. Well, have an amazing day. Thank you so much for your time. Those of you who are watching, like and subscribe, and be on the lookout for the next episode of the Big Play Podcast with Dr. Marlon Williams. Peace out.
Peace.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.